Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Reaching Out. Today, we're going to have a conversation with Mike Bell. He has an amazing story to tell. So, we're not really going to get into his story, but if you do want to check out his full story, we did a two-part interview on our podcast, which is in all major platforms. You just got to search for Idle Reach Lifestyle, and then you can hear Mike's amazing story. So, today, Mike is going to join us and talk about how to use tools in life to help us overcome just a bad situation that we were in, and it's going to give us in-depth details on all of that. But before we get into that, guys, please help us grow our YouTube channel by hitting that subscribe button, comment, share, and like, and enter for a chance to win a $25 gift card once we hit that 50 follower mark. Mike, again, thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to join us again. I know it's the third time. I know you're tired of probably of us, but we enjoy having you in the show. We enjoyed the story. My goodness, guys, I really do recommend that you listen to that story. All the links will be in the description below, guys, so you guys can hear Mike's story on our podcast. So, Mike, you're gonna help us cope with overcoming abuse, brokenness, just any and all problems that we're going through. And there's some stuff that I wrote down that you've mentioned, like mindset. Tell us, can you tell us about what the mindset is when we're going through something like this?
Absolutely. First, Renzo, thanks again for having me come back. Last time was an absolute pleasure, and you and Mel are awesome at what you guys do. And it's my pleasure truly to be here and to share some of my story with your audience. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Mm-hmm.
Life, so much of life is mindset. And as we talked about in the podcast, right? Once you start to identify yourself as a survivor instead of a victim, that's the first step. And that really is where that mindset steps in. What I like to say is, master your mind and your life will be whatever you want it to be. If you look at every opportunity, if you look at every situation as an opportunity instead of an obstacle, right? You're more likely to learn from that instead of lose from that. And it really is that mindset. It's about it's as we said in the podcast, right? Life happens for us, not to us. And if you identify that, and if that's the mindset you wake up in every day, that you can walk out of the door and you're like, all right, life's happening for us today. What can we make out of this? What can we do? What can we gain out of today to help us reach that goal that we're looking for? And it doesn't matter if you're a victim of trauma or if you've had a cushy little Nerf life, right? It's still the same principles apply. However, I would say that, grit and resilience are only formed in adverse situations. And, diamonds are formed under severe amounts of pressure. You look around you, 1 out of every 5 people is a victim of some form of trauma. That's 20% of the population already has a leg up on you when it comes to doing hard stuff. So if you've never been a victim of trauma, you just got to work 20% harder. The guys that have been a victim of trauma, quit identifying yourself as a victim, start identifying yourself as a survivor and establish that mindset to be great and be successful. And that's really where it starts, Renzo, is that mindset.
Mike, thank you. You just hit the nail on the coffin with that again, because you do have to have that mindset to go ahead and push forward on anything we do. Really, to be honest with you, you kind of said it. If we have that mindset, then there's nothing that's going to stop us to go into what we want to do, and that's going to lead me right into commitment, right? Because it takes commitment. Having the mindset is one thing, because you block the negativity around you. You have a goal that you see, but then you have to have the commitment to follow through on that mindset, because without it, then you kind of like right there, right? You kind of see it, but you never go to it. So in your experience, Mike, what type of commitment level does it take, and how can we establish that rhythm, I guess, when it comes to commitment in pursuing that goal or pursuing that change of life? Mm-hmm. Mike, can you share that with us?
Yeah, so there really isn't no level of commitment. You're either committed or you're not. Anybody ever tells you they're 10% committed, that means they're 90% uncommitted. And wow. That's right. You're either committed or you're not. You're either in it or you're not. And so I personally don't buy into that creed of a partially committed situation. You're either in it or you're not. All right. And once you've found out that you are committed, right? Once you've arrived at commitment, uh, figure out if you're there to stay or not, right? And that's failing fast. All right. It's wasted effort, and what people will tell you, and what I say is, fail fast and fail forward. So if you have the mindset and you're set up and you're ready to commit and you go ahead and commit, right? There is no half-ass committing. You're either in it or you're not. The more time you wait to fully commit, if you're in a competitive situation where Renzo, I know in the podcast you talked about you have started a business recently and you're ready to you're on that verge of like taking it to the next level.
That's
The
right.
only thing stopping taking it to that next level is your level of commitment. And
Exactly.
once you commit fully, you're there, man. And now it's about, all right, let me identify the things that are going to stop me from hitting my full potential level, right? And in order to do that, you have to focus on the wasted effort, and don't think that you're not going to have wasted effort, because you are, right? And it's how quickly you can identify where those wasted efforts are that are going to allow you to fail fast and to fail forward, right? So how do we do that, right? Well, take measures often, very often. Take measures of where you are and do it often, and don't hesitate to pivot if the results aren't tracking toward your desired outcome. And really what that is, you've heard this before, everyone says this, but a goal without a plan is just a dream. So before you even step out the door, you need to have a plan that tracks to your goal. And as you're marching along that plan, on that plan toward that goal, if you see something that is a hindrance, identify that as fast as possible, right? And once you identify where that is, take a production pivot, right? Take a step to the left or step to the right and start tracking toward that goal, and do that as fast as possible.
Oh, thank you. That's actually exactly, you hit that information, right? Because like I said, I've been in my business now for about 2 years. It's in a language school, basically, where I'm teaching language, English and specifically. And I'm in the up and up because I'm at the cusp where, like, if I can put that mindset and commitment to play, I know that the sky's the limit with this. And I'm already starting to see the fruits of that effort. And like, I can't wait. I can already wait for 2 months from now, where if everything's going as I'm planning, because I'm really like banging and banging on it. I believe everything you just said, to be honest with you. And I'm excited to see that the worth of the work that I'm putting in, which is also not accepting anything less than what you believe you're worth, right? And
Right.
if you believe you're worth $1,000, then talk like $1,000. Don't act like a dollar, kind of thing. It's just if it makes sense, which is going to lead me to your next point, which is knowing your worth. You got to know your value, and don't undersell yourself. And of course, we're all guilty of this. Don't oversell yourself as well, because you want to make sure that you're fair and honest with who you are, because that's going to lead you to where you want to be, right? So tell us about how we can recognize about knowing how much we're worth, Mike, or at least in your case.
So knowing your work to me is twofold. Okay. The first,
Okay.
is first admitting to yourself that you're not worthless. And as a trauma survivor and somebody that lived the life that I lived, Renzo and Mel, that we talked about in the podcast, first of all, you have to realize that you aren't worthless, right? And then you can start to identify what you are worth. And you're going to be worth different things to different people. Sometimes you're a worthy friend or a worthy relationship partner or a worthy employee or a worthy boss. And identifying what your worth is in each of those situations is going to help enable you to be as successful as you can in that situation. And I'm not really talking about what you charge somebody per hour to do a job. It's more about not just understanding your worth, but understanding your value, right? And what value do you have to offer somebody else? If you're a survivor of a traumatic situation, you're priceless, right? And that's another word there. You have worth and value and price, right? You're priceless because you've lived it. You have experiential value that you could impart upon somebody else. If you are a journeyman carpenter or a journeyman linguistic or anything like that, your value, your worth is tangible. And understanding that is going to help you be successful in whatever path you take, be it mental health, counseling, trades, professionalism, right? Education, anything like that. Understanding what you bring to the table is step one. Step zero, before you even start walking, though, is understanding that you're not worthless, because you do have something to offer. Renzo, I'm not in the language instruction industry like yourself, but I'm not worthless, right? I could probably walk in and at least teach somebody how to publicly speak, right? So
Correct, correct.
I'm not worthless when it comes to that. And frankly, but I have to at least acknowledge that. I would be terrible at like epidemiology, right? Like I'm pretty worthless right there, but identifying what you bring to the table, identifying what your marketable skill set is in any situation is important. And that's knowing your worth. The really the second part of that, though, is unrealistic expectations, right? You can't, you can't have what's that saying? You can't have a wine taste on a beer budget, right?
True, true, true.
You have to have realistic expectations. And let's be real, right? Very few people, when we're talking about success here, very few people make it overnight. And people need to understand that it will take hard work, dedication, and my buzzword here, intent. Without hard work, dedication, and intent, you're just not going to do it. And if you set unrealistic expectations, you will experience unrealistic failures, right? And these are the failures that often break people. So know your worth, value, and price if you are trying to sell yourself, and set tangible expectations. And what I like to do is start at zero expectations. I expect nothing from anybody. And then as I progress, right, then that net zero starts to change, right? Like Renzo, I didn't expect anything out of you. And whenever we decided to have a podcast episode and then a YouTube episode together, I didn't expect it other than the platform. That's it. But now I expect that you're an awesome host, right? Like I know,
Thank you.
I know if we talk again, I could expect that Renzo's going to be very engaging, and it's the same thing in any situation you walk into, man. It's understanding the expectations, know your worth, know your value, know your price, and set realistic expectations for yourself.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the compliment. I try to improve within every practice, every show that I have. And that's something that I try to take pride on, because I know my value, just like you were saying. And I want you guys to recognize this. It is close to midnight and we're recording this, guys. And then that takes the commitment and knowing and having the mindset and of course knowing your worth, that you want to share this and you want to do this. And if you don't have that, if you don't know that you're going to be lost, right? And if you feel lost, it's because you're lacking these points that Mike's hitting right now. So hopefully if you're lacking that and you're listening to this, hopefully that gives you at least a map to knowing what you want to do, what you want to pursue, guys. And the most important things out of all this that he's sharing, because this is really resonating with me as well, and this is giving me a lot of tools as well, is the fact that we're sharing. You have to share these tools. You have to let people in. You have to go ahead and explore. You have to take those chances. Like you said, in jumping out of the cliff, knowing that God was going to open that parachute, you're not going to fall flat if he got you that far. It's the same thing. You got to step up and do it. Yes, it will be scary. Yes, it will be difficult. But Mike said, if you don't put that commitment, you don't put that work, then what are you doing, right? It's just a dream. And when dreams don't give you food, doesn't give you stability, doesn't give you a home, right? It's nice to dream, but if we're not doing anything to pursue it, then we're just kind of letting life pass us by. And right here and reaching out, that's the name of our show says that itself, reaching out. We're reaching out and doing things, guys. And that's what I wanted you guys to take from Mike. And of course, and this is not for everybody, this last one, but I think it can resonate with everybody. Parenting, right? It takes commitment. You basically hit your stride and you peaked as a parent, which I believe, in my opinion, is more difficult to do it as a parent than you were if you were single, with nothing to really provide to other than yourself. Right? You can live with I don't know, dollar noodles all the rest of your time until you get to where you want. But when you're with the family, you can't. That's not acceptable. So how about that, Mike? How about for those people that do have kids and parenting? What advice do you have for them when it comes to that mindset?
So a couple different things on that, right?
Mhm.
When it comes to parenting, first thing, and this, Renzo, I would like to say that if we want to have a whole episode on parenting, we could do that too. So here's the cliff notes, right? Because
All
parenting is
right.
such a big topic. But
Mhm.
if we're talking about mindset, commitment, pursuing your goals, pursuing your dreams, oftentimes kids can be an obstacle to that, right? And what you say is, oh, I'm not going to take that leap. I'm not going to jump because I have kids, right? It's too risky for me because there's no safety net, right? If I fall, it's not just me, it's the kids too, as you were mentioning. If I was single, I got the ramen noodle, right? But now I got the kids. So what am I going to do? What your kids are going to see if, and right now, what I'm talking about is pursuing your dreams. What your kids will see is you did pursue your dreams. You went for it, right? And that is setting that spirit for your kids. It's setting that example. So much about parenting is examples. Renzo, remember whenever you were 10 years old, you probably thought, my parents got it all figured out, right? They understand the way of the world. They're grown-ups, right? But
Mhm.
now it's like we're still 16, just 20 years older. You know what I mean? Those
True,
have all
true.
the answers, but nobody has all the answers, right?
That's
So,
true.
but your
Mhm.
kids think that you do. So act as if, right? Act as if you do have all the answers and lead them in the right way. And if you want your kids to not be hurdled or restrained by your same fears and your same trepidation about going out and pursuing those things that you really care about in life, then you need to jump. And they're going to see that. They're going to say, you know what, I remember when dad decided to stop laying tile for a living and go out there and pursue his dream. Man, that took a lot of courage, right? And just understand that they're watching everything you do. And I want to tie something in on that. Okay.
Go ahead.
You don't have to do it alone. And what I mean by that is, yeah, it's you that's walking down the street. It's you that's knocking on doors. It's you that's doing that. But learn from smart people. Okay. Chances are, no matter what you're doing, all right, somebody's done it before, right? It's
Of course.
likely that somebody has been there before. So why reinvent the wheel, Renzo? Like, why duplicate effort? You could save yourself years of hard work by learning from smart people, So that's what I would recommend, like if you if you're concerned, like, oh, I really want to do this, but I got the kids at home, I got to really worry about it. It's like, all right, well, save yourself half the time by going and learning from somebody that's done it before. But you got to be careful because I want to touch on two things right here. Okay.
Go ahead. Mhm.
One of them is knowledge. The other one is wisdom. All right. Knowledge you get from a book. Wisdom is when you apply that knowledge over time, right? That's as an engineer speak. I don't want to get into the technical side of it, but an engineer speak, right? Wisdom is a function of time as it pertains to knowledge, right? It's K of T equals wisdom or whatever. So if you learn from smart people, all you're gaining is their knowledge. For them, it's wisdom. For them, they've built up that set of information over time because
Of
they've
course.
applied it,
Mhm.
practiced it, all that stuff. But when they tell you that all you're absorbing is the knowledge, you don't have the time applied to gain that wisdom, right? So it's just knowledge for you. So when you go out there and you like, let's use an example here, like you're turning a wrench on a car or something like that, right? You may go out there and throw the open end of the wrench on the bolt because somebody told you got to use a wrench for this. Wrench slides off, you cut your hand open, right? Well, somebody told you to use a wrench, but they didn't tell you to use the box end, right? You just went out there and did it with the open, and now you cut your hand up. The mechanic would have used the box end, right? But then that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. He knows, and you're just learning. But yeah, parenting is such a big episode, man, or a big topic that it could take up its whole episode. But don't be afraid to jump. Get out there and do it. Set the example for your kids. Set the example that you should not be held back. All right. Be a visionary. Get out there and charge after it because, your kids are going to watch. And if you feel like you don't have all the answers and you feel like, I really should, ask somebody about this, do it. Learn from smart people. Don't reinvent the wheel.
That's a good point again. And just to go ahead and do it and to go ahead and apply and get that knowledge, get as much knowledge as you want to get, and then and applying it, right? Because that's how the wisdom comes. Application. It's like why go to college if you're not going to apply what you learned? Then it's kind of wasted knowledge sitting in the back burner. So, and that applies not just for education, guys, in life too. Everything you learned in life, you want to go ahead and apply, because that's how you get that experience on it. Because there's certain things that schooling or things won't teach you unless you do it. Like Mike, I think you used the mechanic thing as a perfect example, right? I'm pretty sure that mechanic that knew how to do that didn't know that the first time either. He probably cut his hand too, and that was the wisdom. So now he doesn't have to go through that pain, right? Because he has that knowledge and that wisdom and applying. I know this is not one of your points, but you touched on it in a podcast. Again, guys, you really got to go listen to that podcast so you know what we're talking about. And it's relationships, because everything Mike is just specifically talking about you. You couldn't have done this on your own. And I want people to recognize this, that you can put the work by yourself, but you need people to guide you and to give you the tools, to give you the opportunity, right? It's like, I'm going to get a job. Well, somebody has to give you that job. So therefore you didn't do it on your own. Somebody had to give you that chance for then you to go ahead and put that work in. And if you're like in Mike's shoes, where you have a family, somebody's got to stay back and watch the kids, the unsung hero, right? Whether whether that's your partner, or whether that's your mom or your dad that's helping you with that, or a brother or sibling, whomever, right? You have those unsung heroes that do help you in whatever relationship you are with the people that just mentioned. So you do need to have that. And Mike had that, maybe not so much in the beginning, but right now today, and that's where he's at. So I know that's not one of your points, but I know you have a lot of wisdom on that and a lot of knowledge, again, right? What you just said. So please share with us on those on that part of the relationship, the unsung heroes, because they allowed you to be the man that you are today.
Yeah, sure. There, a lot of people will say this, and I'll probably screw up the wording on it, but the greatest gift a man could have is a strong woman by his side. And that applies for the LGBTQ community, however you want to apply it. Somebody by your side to support you, encourage you, lift you up, and be there to catch you when you fall. It doesn't have to be like a romantic interest. It doesn't have to be your mom or dad. It doesn't have to be your brother or sister, right? It could be a peer. It could be a mentor. It could be a previous employer. It could be anybody. But why try to do it by yourself, right? Well, there's some acclaim that comes with that. I'm a self-made man. Look behind the curtain for any self-made man, and you'll probably find a strong woman that was pushing his butt to get there, right? There's always somebody else. And the quicker, there's two things on that, Renzo, okay? One is identify the negativity in other people, because a lot of people are haters, right? And they're going to try to hold you back. You need to figure out who those people are as fast as possible and avoid them. And if you look at most successful people, most of them aren't hanging around with Johnny from the block, all right? The guy they grew up with, right? Most of them have outgrown their peer group, right? And now they're elevated to a different peer group, right? And it may be a good thing or it may be a bad thing, but it happens. Don't be held back by your past. Grab somebody, find somebody, hold on to somebody and carry them with you, or allow them to carry you through those hard situations, because you're not going to be able to do it by yourself.
Again, you hit the nail on the coffin, because like you said, behind the curtain of every person who's quote unquote says they're self-made, or I did it on my own, that's a half truth, right? And there's no such thing as a half truth. It's either the truth or a lie, right? So, like for example, like in my case, Mike, the podcasts and the YouTube channel and the blog, because we do have a blog as well, it was never my idea. I'm just want to share this with everybody. We haven't had this revelation yet, so this is kind of breaking news for everybody that's joining us. It was never my idea. It was never something that I said, I woke up and said, I'm going to write about this. I had someone also too, like you said, behind. I may be the face and I might be the voice that you're listening to right now, but there's an unsung hero behind the curtain in my life right now, who actually pushed me to something I never thought I was going to do. Like I never see myself as a podcaster nor a YouTube content creator, but here I am, 3 guests in since November of last year that we started this. And yeah, I just like, that's a quick shout out to, it was not a hidden secret. It's Mel who pushed me to do the podcast, who pushed me to do the YouTube, even though I didn't want to. she did. She believed in me, and then here we are today, having having this platform that we get to share this conversation with Mike. Again, if I don't have that motivation, if I didn't have that person, not say to be more specific, if I didn't have Mel push me, this communication, Mike, isn't happening, right? Because everything that's structure is based on her work, like the behind the scenes stuff, guys. The video editing, the audio editing, she does that, guys. So there's not you may not hear or see her often on our shows, but when you do it, just recognize that she is the unsung hero of this platform. And I completely agree with you, Mike. I'm never going to take claim for everything. This is a team effort and a group effort. Even having you on our show is you're part of the team, at least for this episode, because it takes a community to make things grow, and I'm under the belief of that. There's another point just from from the podcast, and again, guys, I know I keep saying it over and over and over, but you do gotta really listen to his podcast, because everything that he's talking about is based on the information he gave us then, and it's a really good story, and I do recommend you guys listen to it. Is timing. All right, timing. You went through a lot of phases of your life where it just wasn't the right time.
That's right.
But things had to happen the way that they happened, how they happened, for you to go ahead and apply all of the things you just talked about at the right time, because you're basically living the success, you're living the life that you always envision of living, because you stayed the path. So can you tell us about that timing?
Yeah, and really what that boils down to for me, Renzo, is a saying from Ed Milet. It's life happens for us, not to us. And if you take that as it stands kind of on the surface, right? It's like everything is going to happen at a certain time. You cannot control the past. And in fact, you can't even control the present, right? The only thing you can control is the future. So if you plan, if you set yourself up, if you do all the stuff that we've been talking about in this episode, when the right time comes, you're going to be the most prepared person for that event. And in the context of the podcast, we were talking about trauma and adversity and grit and resilience and diamonds and all this other stuff, right? All of those things that happen as a trauma survivor is preparing you for that time. It's preparing you for when it is time to shine, right? And to rise to the occasion. Life is only going to happen on life's terms, right? I mean, you could force it, you could try to over prepare or push the needle or push the edge or walk out there and do all that stuff, man, but you might be too early, right? And you can't control the timing of certain things. I mean, you could do the best you can, but again, life happens for us, not to us, man. So when it does happen, you just need to be as most prepared as you can to execute at that time. So don't waste time, right? Don't waste time getting there, because you don't want the opportunity to pass you by as well. And that leads me to something I want to say. We mentioned earlier about learning from smart people and managing your expectations and identifying wasted effort and not being afraid to pivot at the right time, right? And a lot of times what we look for is other people's opinions, right? We want to be gratified. Like we want other people to be impressed by us. It's just natural, right? And some things, there's a place where a lot of people screw up, Renzo, and there is a big difference between getting someone's advice or getting their validation. Right. And this is in relationships. It's from your parents, right? Do you really want your dad's advice about the new job you're about to get? Or do you want his validation to tell you, hey, that's a good job, boy? Right. Like your boss, the same thing, or your peers, the same thing, or your spouse, the same thing. Do you really want their advice or do you want their validation? Why does that even matter? Why am I asking that? Well, one of them fuels your ego and the other one fuels your growth. So be very careful, right? Be very careful of people that are willing to give you advice, because the same thing applies to them too. Are they just trying to boost their own ego by trying to shepherd you and tell you all this stuff? Or are they really trying to boost their own growth by helping other people and being that mentor? Same thing applies, right? When you go to ask somebody, hey, what do you think I should do? Look at this money that I have. Should I invest it here or there? Are you really looking for their advice or you just want their validation? And again, it all kind of ties back to that, I guess, kind of to the timing thing. Life happens for us, not to us. Everything's going to happen at a certain time. Make sure you're the most prepared when you get there. And if along the way trying to get there, you need to seek advice or ask those smart people, make sure you're doing it with the right intentions. And it boils down to that word intent. You know, everything has to be targeted to a specific intent.
Uh, Absolutely, and I agree with you with what you said. And because actually something you said is actually something I'm doing right now today, and I have plans to travel. I have plans to travel once certain restrictions are lifted, and like you said, preparation. Don't waste today, right? Because I can say I want to travel here by the end of the year, but what am I doing today between today and that moment? Am I going to be ready? So when they like, it's like, okay, the restrictions open. I'm not even ready to get a ticket yet. I don't have the money. I don't have the time because I wasn't using that time wisely. I wasn't preparing myself. Like you said, I can control that. I can control that future by preparing today, by working hard, saving money, making right decisions. So when that opportunity comes, oh, like, okay, here you go. Blah, blah, blah. Get my ticket. Okay, bye. I'm going. But if I'm not doing that work now to get me ready for that moment, then that moment, like Mike just said, it's going to pass me by. And then who's going to be to blame? Yourself, because you didn't use your time wisely. You weren't committed. You didn't have that mindset to keep pushing forward. I mean, I just wanted to share that personal experience with me. But I think one of your last points, and I think this is the most important, one of the most important ones, is overcoming and breaking the chains of your past. Because if you don't, you're doomed to repeat it. You're doomed to repeat it, and that's not only you, but the generation that comes after you, which are your kids, your grandkids, right? So you want to be that person to go ahead and say, today is the day that everything ends. Today we're going to do things right. Mike, you have the experience and the wisdom and the knowledge of this, so please share that with us about overcoming and breaking the chains, setting a new standard, pushing forward.
Well, one of them kind of leads to the other, Renzo, right? You can't break the chains without first overcoming, right? And we could look at breaking the chains from a bunch of different ways. Statistics show you that if you were abused as a child, you're more likely to abuse your children. If you were in a home where the husband beat the wife, you are more likely to beat your wife. And it propagates through time. Statistics show that, right? It's not Mike Bell saying that. It's not Renzo saying that. It's statistics. And at some point, you have to break the chains of abuse, divorce, addiction, bankruptcy, any of these things, these negative traits that pass down through generations. You're either going to be the one that breaks the chains or you're not. There is no commit. There is no halfway breaking the chains. Either you're doing it or you're not. And in order to do that, you have to mentally overcome those things that happened to you or happened against you in your life. If you were a victim of abuse, you have to overcome that. You can't carry that trauma around with you for the rest of your life. And as we were mentioning in the podcast, Renzo, right? You either can be a victim or you can be a survivor. And as soon as you overcome the victim mentality and the quote that I like to use, right? Quit being your own excuse for mediocrity. As soon as you can wipe that stuff away and you could overcome those things that have happened to you. Listen, I'm not sitting here today trying to tell you that your trauma isn't worth something to you. All right. You may hold on to your trauma with claws because it's part of your identity. I'm a rape victim. All right. I get it. I was sexually molested as a child. You hold on to that as part of your identity. And when people try to remove that from you, it's difficult. And you don't want to let go of it because it's part of who's defined who you are. It's an excuse for some of your behavior, right? Well, it's okay. She was a victim of rape, and I'm not trying to diminish that act. But what I'm saying is when you hold on to that and it becomes so much a part of your identity that you're not able to move beyond that. You're not overcoming that activity. You are still very much a victim. You're not a survivor yet. You have to release that. You have to take your little eraser out and erase that part of your life, right? Take the tools, take the strengths, take the resilience, take the grit, take all of that stuff that you learned as a result of that and bring it into your survivorhood. That's how you overcome. Once you overcome that, if it's the abuse in the household, if it's the divorce or the addiction or all of this other stuff, once you overcome it, then you could break those chains. Then you could take that river of cruelty that flows through your generation and you could fork off. And you could take that somewhere else, right? Where your kids never have to see you scream at your spouse. Your kids never have to be worried that, the lights are going to get shut off on them because mom and dad aren't paying the bills. Or, your kids will never have to have, two different Christmases or whatever it is because you guys split up, and it's overcoming your past, identifying that you're not a victim, that you're actually a survivor. And then you could break those chains, right? You could break the chains of abuse, divorce, cruelty, depression, anxiety, all of this victimhood. You could break all of that stuff, but first you have to overcome it. And overcoming it starts with you. It's not something that somebody can give you.
That's right, absolutely, and I'm 100% on board with everything you said. Because it really takes recognition and accepting. Okay, this is not defining me, or this is not I'm not going to use this as an excuse to why I'm lazy, to why I can't achieve this, or to why I can't change. Those are excuses. And I'm, like I said, like Mike said, we're not trying to diminish anything here, because everybody has their own personal issues, their own personal circumstances they're overcoming. But like Mike was saying, and I 100% believe that you have to overcome that first. Before you take that next step, you gotta accept, okay, yeah, it was a crappy life, but today is the day where we're moving forward. It's not going to be like that anymore. I'm not going to use this as an excuse why I wake up at noon as opposed to 6 a.m. and make the best out of my morning. Guys, even like just something so small like that, you'll recognize how much more time you have in the day to do something productive, right? You feel better about yourself. Like working out, if you start working out today, by the time 3 months you feel different. Your body will feel different, right? You have the different energy. So recognize this, accept it, and move forward. That is the mentality you have to give yourself a better life, not only for you, but for the people around you too. Because I believe that any action you take has a ripple effect. Just like when you throw a rock in the pond, right? It throws that ripple, right? You're trying to hit that one fish, but all the fish go away. Why is that? Because the ripple effect of your decisions. So don't, like Mike saying, don't let that define you. Don't let that control you. Break those chains out of there, overcome it, and I'm sure that you guys will see a better tomorrow if you start putting on the work today. Mike, right before we go ahead and wrap this up, again, his story is in the podcast. Please check that out. Any last minute advice for somebody who is afraid, or who's scared to speak out about what's going on in their lives, in any aspect of life? Like, what is something that you did, and how can they do that? Like, that's the first step. The first step is letting everything out before you start anything else.
Yeah. There are, just like there is, one Mike Bell and one Renzo, everybody's different. And there's no right answer for everybody. And if you're, 14, 15-year-old kid watching this and you're worried that, mom and dad might find out something, or you're in a dangerous situation and you need help, you got to let somebody know, right? If you are victim of spousal abuse, you got to let somebody know. If you are like myself, a 38-year-old man who spent the first 16 years of his life getting sexually and physically and emotionally and mentally abused, at some point, you got to let somebody know. You got to talk about it. That's where healing comes from, guys. It's from making connections. For me, it was sitting in rooms with other people that were victims of PTSD, or that were living with PTSD, survivors of PTSD, and learning their tools and understanding ways to cope, and just building that mental toolbox. My biggest tip is don't wait. The longer you wait, you're robbing yourself of days. If you were to wake up tomorrow and you need help, and you were to wake up tomorrow and go talk to somebody, you're one day closer. You have just earned yourself one more day of happiness. If you wait 6 months, you just lost 6 months. You're still in the mess. So, two things here. One, don't wait. But two, understand that you don't have to do it alone. You need to find somebody to talk to. I'll put myself out there. If you need to talk to somebody, if you feel like I'm relatable, you can find me anywhere. You find me on Facebook or Instagram, or at Real Mike Bell. It's super easy to find me. I have a phone number on my page. I have an email address on my page. Anytime anybody needs to get a hold of me, you call me, because I'm here to talk to you. if you're a veteran and you're listening to this, find somebody. You don't want to be one of the 22 a day, right? Like there's always somebody to talk to. You don't need to do it alone.
Thank you, Mike. And it's exactly what people need to hear. Again, guys, don't let go of that pride, let go of that ego. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out, right? Because eventually your story is going to be reaching out to other people. Ripple effects, just like ripple effects can have negative, it can also be positive, right? So Mike, thank you for throwing that ripple effect of positivity, of breaking change, of becoming the best version of yourself that you can be, so that you can enjoy life, that you're giving yourself that opportunity to allow others to enjoy life with you. And in this case, for people like Mike, his wife, his kids, because now they get to all enjoy it together, right? They don't witness the things that you've been through, but they get to witness the amazing things that you are capable of. Hence, now that's going to start a new chain reaction where they're going to be amazing just as you are, Mike. And I'm sure that your kids are going to grow up to be amazing people, positive people for the world, because you're doing a lot of good things. And something like this, you sharing your story, it's going to reach out. We're going to get people to talk about this, and hopefully they do reach out. Please, guys, do reach out to Mike. He's been through it all. He's going to give you the best advice possible. And like I said, just talking to Mike before the show and in between shows, that he does have a lot of wisdom. He does have a lot of knowledge that he'll pass on to you. He's basically the American story, from nothing to something, like you see in the movies. This is real life right here, guys. This is not a movie. This is real life, and he has the tools to help you get there. Mike, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing all this wonderful information. You guys already found out where Mike already said where you guys can find them. Please, guys, continue to follow us, continue to support us. Hit that like, comment, subscribe, and share, and enter your chance to win a $25 gift card once we hit that 50 subscriber mark, and help us get to that milestone. Because again, this YouTube channel can't, as much work as we put, we can't do it alone. We need your help and support too. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope you liked this video. And you guys, this was of a blessing for people, because sometimes we do need to hear this. You guys can find us in all of our social medias. The links are going to be in the description below. And remember, guys, to always reach out, break limits. Much love. Bye.